2021. Just as an introduction, this is the first meeting of the newly elected council. We are joined by one new member, Mr. John Milone. He's at that angle over there. Everyone else is as is, which is a good thing. And I was thankfully named chair along with John Walsh, vice chair. And we all do our duties equally. So with that, tonight we preface our meeting. We'll start with a roll and a pledge of allegiance, but we do have a public hearing that will immediately follow that. Mrs. Milton. Here.
Here. Here.
Mr. Milone.
Here.
Ms. Nichols. Here. Mr. Bonner. Here. Mr. Talbot.
Here.
Mr. Elder.
Here.
We have a board of
Thank you, Mrs. Milton. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we now begin that special public hearing. The hearing subject matter is consideration of amendments to Public Safety Commission and Prison Advisory Commission ordinances. We've already taken the roll. I'll just remind everybody of our basic procedures. We will basically make a presentation on the subject matter. Call, of course, will be read. That's the legal notice. And then there will be questions and or statements. I usually combine them. It's almost easier to do it that way since most of us can't keep track of either. And we'll go through all of those. There are no questions directed to individual council members. All questions are directed through the chair, who will then put them over to whoever is the appropriate person to answer any questions. We welcome as many questions as possible. And with that, the public hearing will ultimately close and we'll begin the regular meeting. Finally, Mrs. Milton, it's your time to read the legal notice.
Notice of public hearing. Ordinance amendment merging Public Safety Commission and Prison Advisory Committee. The Town Council of the Town of Cheshire will hold a public hearing on December 14, 2021 at 7 p.m. in council chambers to consider the proposed amendment merging the Public Safety Commission and Prison Advisory Committee as follows. Proposed amendment merging Public Safety Commission and Prison Advisory Committee. Section 2-78 through 281 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Cheshire, Connecticut will be hereby amended and modified. This is elected and citizens will be heard in the public hearing concerning this proposed ordinance dated in Cheshire, Connecticut, this 14th day of December 2021. Robert J. Gorse Jr., Town Council Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Milton. And with that, we're going to have a presentation of the hearing subject introduced by David Velaber. He is the chairman of our ordinance committee. We also have the town attorney present, and they can bounce it off and take it from there.
Thank you,
Go ahead,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman. As the call very succinctly and clearly puts out there, the purpose and intent of this public hearing is to merge the current Public Safety Commission and the Prison Advisory Committee into one joint committee to be known as the Public Safety and Prison Community Services Committee. This committee would be composed of 5 residents who shall be appointed by the council and would serve 4-year terms, staggered 4-year terms, and ultimately would have the duties basically of the 2 existing commissions merged into one commission, which would include addressing such similar things to what the 2 committees have done, including research and evaluating public safety issues referred to them from the town council, town manager, or other such municipal officials such as the police chief and fire marshal, research and evaluate current and future public safety needs, define and report on policies which establish a standard to be used in addressing and remediating public safety hazards, make recommendations to the town council regarding measures to be taken to address identified hazards within the community, support, supplement, and conduct public safety education programs, support, stimulate, and assist citizen groups in understanding and cooperating with municipal programs for public safety, and stimulate public interest and support for official programs of safety and accident prevention, identify prison community issues not currently being addressed by existing committees, boards, or commissions, and assess available programs to address those issues, work to recommend the establishment of short and long-term goals and objectives for the prison community relations of the community, recommend priorities for the establishment or expansion of prison community programs, recommend additional and expanded prison community services and programs, promote a network of volunteer citizens, church civics groups, private and public resources in the development and operation of the prison community services, and inform officials and legislators of prison community issues to develop and advocate specific solutions for those issues. So as I said, these were ultimately the duties of the two commissions being merged into one commission at this time for the purposes of really of effectuating a more, hopefully a more robust and active commission. So.
Thank you, Mr. Villever. Any members of the public have any questions or comments to make? Thank you, please. Mr. Lohman, please come forward and speak into the mic. We'll give you help if you need.
Good evening. Frank Lohman, 17 Stonegate Circle, Cheshire, Connecticut. I currently have the privilege of serving as the chair of the Cheshire Public Safety Commission and have done so since December of 2020. Our commission members are Lauren Mealy, Corey Nash, Greg Wolf, Guy Darter, and myself. We are supported by Police Lieutenant Donald Miller and Recording Secretary Tracy Benson, also of the CPD. Our town council representative is Jim Jinks. For the record, we have had a quorum at all of our meetings since March of 2020. I am very proud to say that the commission has been very much revitalized this past year and a half. By way of example, we organized a townwide sign campaign consisting of 50 cardboard signs encouraging our residents to lock their cars, take their keys, and remove belongings. At the Fall Festival, we aided the Cheshire Police Department in distributing 300 backpacks with CPD and CFD logos. All of these backpacks were ordered by and paid for by the Cheshire Public Safety Commission. We raised $5,500 for our gift account, which we added to our $500 yearly budget, a budget which I would like to discuss at your next budget meeting. We recently established a web presence with a public safety Facebook page, which is maintained by Commissioner Lauren Mealy. We already have over 600 followers. We also added an email account, publicsafety@cheshireCT.org. We ordered and paid for the refurbishing of 4 CPSC signs, the ones at Route 10 and Country Club, Route 70 by the Public Works Building, at Route 68 at Weiss Road, and Route 10 by the South Fire Station. We added 4 new signs to the Cheshire Public Safety monthly seasonal sign campaign. The new sign addressed the so-called Tristan's Law regarding ice cream truck safety. Tristan's mom took the time to say a very special thank you to the commission. We ordered and paid for 12 permanent signs for the trail parking lots, Cheshire Park, Quinnipiac Park, and Mixville Park. Once again, reminding those who park there to lock their cars, take their keys, and remove their belongings. Under the guidance and creativity of Commissioner Greg Wolf, the commission designed and posted a survey regarding public safety in Cheshire. The survey resulted in some 215 responses, very interesting ones, by the way, many of which the commission is working on addressing or getting addressed. We are looking into a way to best publish the survey results. Commissioner Corey Nash gives the commission presence on the very popular Cheshire Community Forum, and our very recently added member, Commissioner Guy Darter, was immediately responsible for getting us a substantial contribution to our gift account. Our council liaison, Jim Jinks, has been super supportive. Working with him, we have had a new sidewalk initiative in its infant stage and a potential proposal resolving an issue with bike riders on the trail. Both top 3 are 2 of the top 3 concerns resulting from our survey. Our supporting members, Lieutenant Donald Miller and Tracy Benson, are nothing short of wonderful. One helps us get things done. The other keeps us out of trouble. Council members, we now have a wonderful, hardworking, and diversified commission. I ask that this be carefully considered when forming a new merged commission. Thank you all for your service to the Cheshire community. Congratulations on your elections and re-elections, and for your consideration of this not-so-subtle request to keep my commission together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lohman, thank you for that, and thank you for what you guys have been able to do so successfully this past 2 years. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, I guess we will be at that point of adjourning the public hearing. Thank you. We're adjourned, and we will begin with our regular agenda. We've done the roll, we've done the pledge. We will be moving items for executive session to just before the last item on the regular business agenda of new business, which will be just before item I, for the edification of the council and the public. No action is taken in executive session. All voting, if any, takes place after. Okay, so with that, I did want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, the town of Cheshire and anyone in this room, because this is really our last opportunity, and there's at least people in the room to appreciate that. And we appreciate you, and especially spending an evening with us when you could be out there shopping. Or doing the Amazon thing. So with that, we're going to move on to public communications, wherein we've also made a slight rearrangement in the alignment of presentations. And we're going to begin tonight with the recognition of fire prevention poster contest winners, Lily Robinson and Camilla Napolitano. Two pretty hardworking souls who put together some beautiful things. They each will get a certificate of appreciation. But first, we're going to get an explanation from Don Youngquist, who's an old hand at this job.
You had to say old.
A longtime hand.
Did I keep this on? Well, I can. So again, I want to thank you, as I do every year, for continuing to recognize this program. It is a statewide program, and it's initiated to provide teachers with materials and resources to develop fire safety in children so they can in turn promote fire prevention for everyone and their family every day. The theme this year, and it has been for a while, is fire prevention, everyone, every day. Annually, in a good year, there's about 30,000 fourth and fifth grade students that participate, but the last couple of years, the numbers are down. But in Cheshire this year, among our 5 schools, Chapman, Doolittle, Highland, Norton, and St. Bridget's, we had over 100 students participate. So the winners this year had some pretty good competition. Our winners, they will receive tonight a $200 gift card, a certificate, and eventually a ride in a fire truck to school. So, and it's like one of the favorites. Still a favorite of mine too. So I'm just going to move on. We're going to present the winners and have them come up. 4th grade, Lily Robinson from Norton Elementary School. And 5th grade, Camilla Napolitano from Highland Elementary School. So you each get a $200 Amazon gift certificate.
Thank you.
You're going to get more than one certificate if you want to. You can
Parents
put them
want
on
to
the
join.
table. Yeah, the parents can come on up.
Can help hold the hardware.
So Camilla, this is your certificate.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. I did put names on them,
Sorry.
but they're both equal, I could tell you that. And Lily, this is yours. You can step in, sir.
Thank you, Don. Well, we'll start with Lily since she's on top. This is a certificate of recognition to Lily Robinson, a 2021 Connecticut Fire Prevention poster contest winner. Whereas the 2021 Connecticut Fire Prevention Poster Contest was recently conducted to promote fire prevention awareness among children and families. Whereas Lily Robinson, a fourth grade student at Norton Elementary School, was selected as one of 2 local winners in this contest. Now therefore, I, Tim Slocum, Mayor and Chairman of the Town Council, on behalf of the entire council and all the citizens of Cheshire, do hereby offer our congratulations to Lily Robinson. We also offer appreciation to Lily for participating in this important contest and helping to spread this important message. Dated this date, the 14th of December, 2021. Thank you. Now on to Camilla. Okay, it reads very similarly, but you're going to get all the time you need and deserve. Whereas this is a certificate of recognition to Camilla Napolitano, the 2021 Connecticut Fire Prevention Poster Contest winner. Whereas the 2021 Connecticut Fire Prevention Poster Contest was recently conducted to promote fire prevention awareness among children and families. And whereas Camilla A. Napolitano, a 5th grade student at Highland Elementary School, was selected as one of our 2 local winners in this contest. Now therefore, I, Tim Slocum, Mayor and Chairman of the Town Council, on behalf of the Town Council and all the citizens of Cheshire, do hereby offer our congratulations to Camilla A. Napolitano. We also offer our appreciation to Camilla for participating in this contest and helping to spread this important message. Dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 14th day of December 2021. Thank you. That would be terrific. What the ladies, the young ladies are going to do, they're going to bring up their pictures, which we almost never see. I don't know that I've ever seen one on the night of a presentation. So I'm going to take my place and you guys can go up and show the council and we'll shake your hands if that's okay.
So they don't get to keep them tonight because the next step, they go on to the
Right.
county. And if they win at the county, they go on to the state. So this one's yours.
Don't go that way. Go this way. Sorry.
Yes, here, show your posters. You can do the same.
So happy my alma mater, Norton, has been represented.
All the plugs are safely evacuated.
Good job.
Good jobs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. Well, that's always nice stuff. I am going to make a little statement before we have the other presentation. As many of you are aware, and many possibly not, Cheshire Cheer placed first in a competition nationally. They're a club sport that include members of the Cheshire schools and out-of-towners as well. And this was quite a venture for them, and we will give them all the credit due them at our January 11th meeting. But I did want to acknowledge it since it's really fresh news and it's good news. So with that, I'm going to just proceed with the Public Safety Awards.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chief.
So we are back for the second time in 2 months to again honor members of the police department for what I think you will soon come to learn was a pretty harrowing incident that occurred again back in 2019 at a residence down in the south end of town. When I read the narrative, it's a little bit, graphic. but understand the context that we've gone through in the past, 18 months around, police accountability and things like that, and imagine that under slightly different circumstances with slightly different police officers responding, we could have been in the middle of a lot of criticism. This had all the hallmarks of things that people quite rightly get upset about when the police department's involved. A person in the midst of a mental health crisis, armed with a deadly weapon, who needed to be subdued by the police. And again, under slightly different circumstances, maybe with slightly different police officers, this could have been even more of a tragedy than it already was for the people involved. So, before I start, I'd just like to note that one of the officers here tonight managed to escape from us and end up in Plymouth, and we're honored by the presence of Chief Krasicki and his captain, who have both taken time to come tonight to be present when Officer Cruz gets his award. So I will read the narrative of what happened and then call the officers up individually. So on October 9th, 2019, the Cheshire Police Department received a 911 call reporting a suicidal adult male at a residence in the south end of Cheshire. Information relayed by the caller indicated that the male party had attempted to hang himself in the garage of the residence and had then armed himself with kitchen knives and locked himself in a second floor bathroom. Sergeant Jeff Falk and Officer Yodi Cruz were the first to arrive on the scene. When they arrived, they found the male slumped over the toilet in the bathroom, still armed with a knife and actively stabbing himself in the neck. The floor was covered in blood. Sergeant Falk and Officer Cruz entered the bathroom and physically intervened, disarming the male of the knife. Officer Carmine Calo arrived on scene, and all three officers immediately began life-saving measures by applying pressure to the male's serious neck lacerations. The male was uncooperative and had to be restrained to facilitate his own treatment, and continually demanded that the officers and medical personnel just let him die. A short time later, Officer Eric Grimm and Officer Paulo Ferreira arrived at the residence. Working together with the emergency medical personnel, the officers were able to restrain the male, secure him to a backboard, and carry him to the ambulance from the second floor of the home. Officer Ferreira rode to the hospital in the ambulance to assist medical personnel with continued treatment of the male while traveling to the hospital. All responding police personnel acted with professionalism and restraint and treated the victim's mother, who was present throughout, with dignity and respect. So as a result of that incident, Sergeant Falk and now Plymouth Police Officer Yodi Cruz will be receiving Distinguished Service Medals. So I'd like to call Sergeant Falk to come forward first. And Officer Yodi Cruz. Officer Carmine Calo. And Officer Paulo Ferreira will receive a letter of commendation. Mr. Chairman, if you would indulge me for one more second. At the meeting last month, Officer Calo was unable to be here. But you'll recall the incident, the homicide, domestic violence homicide that occurred on Mountain Road. Officer Calo was instrumental in the response and particularly the care of the children involved in that case. As you might recall, a young man who had called 911 after witnessing the incident, and his infant sister who was present there. So if you don't mind, I would like to call Officer Calo to come back up and receive a chief citation for his role in that.
Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. These are sobering and somber moments, really, but one thing very clear among moments of this is that the guys in blue all sort of look the same. They jump when they have to. They fight hard to do the right thing. Most of them are able to do it. Most of them don't get Distinguished Service Awards, and maybe that's a good thing. But when they're called for, they're well-earned and well-deserved. And Chief, I truly appreciate your desire and our open arms to bring this to the attention of the public. It's very important that members of our community understand and appreciate the work our departments do. And thank you especially for traveling from Plymouth, both your chief and Officer Cruz. So with that, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go with our COVID-19 update. We're so tired of those, but they're so necessary. Our town manager, Sean Kimball, will make the report. Just as a reminder to the public, Sean also serves on the board of Cheshire now, which I think is a good thing. We all agree that's a great thing, actually. And so he's very close to the action. He knows what's going on, and he's doing the right thing. But here, give us the report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I will be pretty brief here, but I'll direct your attention to the town manager's report, which I know we'll cover briefly at the end of the meeting. But it does start, as it has, unfortunately, for the last 18 months, almost 2 years, with the COVID update. As everyone is well aware, but as you can really see in sort of stark relief there with the graph, our local case rates have been increasing significantly over the last month. Unfortunately, if you recall the town manager's report from just November, things were still kind of leveled off and still at a low rate in the mid 1% positivity rate range. Unfortunately, we're up to about 5.2% as of yesterday. That's 248 positive cases over the last 7 reporting days out of 4,780 tests. That's up again from 1.4% just last month. The rolling 21-day average, which is that yellow line that I've been reporting for some time now, you can see that kind of smooths out some of the spikes, but you can see the increase over the last 3 weeks pretty significantly, and frankly mirroring almost to the day what occurred last year. If you look to the left of the graph there with December of 20 and January of 20. So we do advise folks to remain vigilant and try to be careful, get boosted if you can, and make sure you're taking whatever precautions you can. We are, as you can see, with the rest of the state of Connecticut, almost with the exception of Washington, Connecticut there in orange, at 14.6 case rate, which means they're frankly right at red anyway. The entire state is experiencing the same increase that we have here locally. So you'll see our current case rate is 41.7 cases per 100,000. Just briefly on the next page, you will see a little bit more good news. We have had a month-over-month increase in vaccination percentages here of 4.8%. So we've moved to 82.3%, 82.29% of Cheshire residents of all ages. Again, that's really the impact of the pediatric doses being available. So you're seeing, again, a much more significant increase than we've seen in recent months. Again, last month we were at 77.5%. Cheshire does stand out. I think there was an article just the other day. Cheshire has been doing a very commendable job with respect to vaccinations. So we thank our residents and of course, Chespercott and all the local providers that have been helping in that effort. And then speaking of clinics, Chespercott has held a number of recent vaccine clinics. They have another one tomorrow, December 15th, at the Holy Theotokos Church on Huckins Road. That's from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. But additionally, Rite Aid will be holding a walk-in clinic that's at 180 Main Street here in Cheshire, and including the newly eligible 16 and 17-year-old booster shots. This is something the superintendent sent out earlier this week. So that's Saturday, December 18th from 10 to 5. Otherwise, we're all aware of the Omicron variant and its impact across the country and the world. And certainly while we haven't been informed of any local cases. We wouldn't be surprised if they will be, of course, coming through and becoming the dominant variant in the near future. But with that, happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Any questions? Mr. Philibert?
Just a quick question on the clinics that the Chesterfield's been doing at the Holy Theotokos Church. Is that only for boosters, or does that include does that include the first time shots for younger people as well?
I'd have to confirm with them to be certain, but I believe they'll take. If not, they can direct you to the right place to go.
Okay.
But I know they'll certainly take first adult doses first time because effectively
Right.
they will have those in supply, but we could confirm and put that out there.
Thank you.
Ms. Nichols?
I'd just like to make a positive comment about those clinics. For those of you who have been there, and to let the community know they are very well run and very quickly accomplished their task. I took part in the booster clinic this time, and I was in and out of there in my requisite 15 minutes, which was by the time I got in and got the shot, I was out in no more than 20 minutes. So if you haven't taken advantage of this one, and if there are future ones coming, please be comfortable to sign up for those because they're doing a great job.
Anyone else? John Walsh?
The hospitalization numbers, are those out there? I know these are basically those who have tested positive, I assume. Are those numbers lower, higher, do you know?
Statewide, they're certainly up. I know hospitalizations were entering, I think, the mid 200s as of today. So they're definitely up over where they were a month ago. That's for sure.
And from what I've heard, even if you have the booster, there's people are still getting it. And like you said, be vigilant and make sure you take every precaution, because from what I've heard, I know several people who've had the vaccines and the boosters, and they still came down with it. So every precaution needs to be taken. So thank you.
To that point, I think last check, I think it was around 76% of folks that are hospitalized were unvaccinated, though. So it still is a good reminder to folks to get vaccinated if you haven't already done so.
Anyone else? And I think those with the booster, I think it's fair to say that anyone who gets it after their shots doesn't seem to have the level of impact. I think that's what I've heard. I'm not sure it's reported all over Cheshire that way or the district, but I think that is one thing we generally understand. So it's a good thing. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to any other public comments. If there's anyone in the room that has something to say, that this is your one time. If not, and you want to stay and listen, that's terrific too. So with that, we're going to move on to the approval of the minutes of the special meeting of November 16th, 2021. I'm going to take this as a separate vote, if you don't mind. So you'll move that first item, okay? Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Veliber. All those in favor? Opposed or abstaining? We'll note for the record that Mr. Milone abstained. So it's 8 and 1 abstention. Okay, so then I'll ask for a motion for the minutes of the special meeting of December 6th, 2021. Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We now move on to the consent calendar. Mr. Bowery.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 121421-1, the consent calendar for December 14, 2021.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Bavano. There's typically no conversation about consent, but I'll deign to one, if there is any. If not,
Just briefly, under the great leadership of Mr. Milone, the Budget Committee reviewed these earlier, and they are wonderful gifts that we are very lucky again to have, totaling thousands of dollars as we have every month, and some of them are, all of them are very important to our way of life in our town. So we're very fortunate to have this. I urge its adoption.
okay, without any further discussion, I'll call for a vote on consent. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So now we go to a little bit of old business. This is discussion and possible approval of legislative recommendations. We've met on this as a council a handful of times. There's been some tweaking. You've received in your packets and I think it's a good opportunity, Sean, if you want to give us a review. I think the next process would be to just approve them and then pass them along to the legislator. And I guess my follow-on question before we even begin, Sean, we typically meet with the legislators sometime in January, so that we have to put on our calendar so we know. I wouldn't propose that for our January 11 meeting, but if there's a second one and they're prepared, it might be appropriate. With that, Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, just as a very brief review to remember the topics that we've discussed now at a couple of meetings. The general legislative requests that we've put forward include number one, priority juvenile justice reform. Number two, the prevailing wage threshold changes that we've requested. Number three, as we have in a number of years before, binding arbitration changes, specifically deadlines for resolution. And then Cheshire-specific requests, transfer of the school bus depot property on Sandbank Road. Number five, as we discussed at our last meeting, expanded bus service route to assist Cheshire's industrial and commercial employers. And I would, with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, number six is a new proposal, something Economic Development Coordinator Andrew Martelli and I have been discussing over the last couple of weeks. Again, another proposal that specifically affects frankly, our largest employers and our largest businesses here in town, something that we were made aware of and that we believe would be worthy of this legislative agenda. Specifically, and I'll kind of just summarize, we would be looking for repeal of House Bill 6688, which became Public Act 21-177, an act concerning highway use fee. And this is set to go into effect January 1st of 2023. But I direct your attention sort of the last sentence there in the first paragraph. There is to be a new tax, if you will, of 17.5 cents per mile on large trucks. And the purpose behind this, as it says there in the second paragraph, was to raise revenue for the transportation infrastructure. And as we know, was in sort of a deficient state over the last few years. However, in light of recently approved federal funding earmarked directly for infrastructure that probably wasn't contemplated when this was first proposed, the feeling is this tax may not ultimately be needed and may actually be diverted, as we've seen the state do from time to time, to other purposes. So it's a big concern. It's a very big dollar amount for our growers, for obviously Bozzuto's and other large businesses. And again, it's been something that Andrew and I have been trying to do to stay in touch with our business community, and again, specifically these large employers, just to try to understand what their needs and their concerns are. And when we heard about this one and sort of the changing landscape that the infrastructure bill creates, this feels like something that to support our local businesses we should be supportive of. So, hence the proposal.
Thank you for that, Sean. Are there any questions, maybe specific, especially to the last insertion, since that is new and fresh? If not, yes, Mr. Jenks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I don't have any questions as far as the last item. I think that's an excellent item to add to this list. The one, I'm sorry I didn't notice this earlier on when we were discussing this, but the first item, juvenile justice reform, which I know is a concern of all of ours. The one thing I noticed is that we're not exactly asking for anything there. We're not sort of spelling out what we would like to see addressed or what legislation we would like to have included. Every other item we have kind of specific demands. And I'm just wondering, before we send this off to the legislators, if we want to put a little bit more meat under that item. Is that something that we could do? I think that's probably a good thing to do.
I wonder if I may. It does address in a few words juvenile crime penalties, which I think is the crux of the issue. I could be mistaken, but I don't think there's a problem with adding meat to it, but I think there's some meat in that because I think that is generally the issue. There's no crime committed and there's no penalty for those. So if it needs to be strengthened, I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah, I mean that may be well and good. I don't know. would kind of defer to maybe Attorney D'Onofrio's opinion on this, or someone that may have greater knowledge in this area, as to something that we may be more specifically asking for before we present this to the legislators.
All right, just to respond, I'm fine with this because it references Chief Drife, and quite frankly, I'm fine with him being the spokesman on our town government's behalf as to what he thinks is right for the town, because he's intimately involved in this issue. So, and it is a changing issue, and I'd rather not have us put something very specific now that may not make a lot of sense when you see what other proposals are, whereas one point person could more handily be nimble and be able to respond. And I think our legislators have spoken with him, and I think he has amplified our feelings well. And I'm comfortable with it the way it's worded, with him being in there. Just a different take.
Anyone else? I know Jeff was more or less tasked with an answer there, and I cut you off, Jeff.
No, we certainly, the town manager and I, talk to Chief Drive and see if there are specific impacts to Cheshire from the changes to the penalties. I mean, that's really, when we talk about when I'm at other towns and we're having the same conversation, that seems to be the crux of the discussion, the inability of the police to really do much in terms of penalizing youthful offenders. So we certainly can have a conversation and try to put a finer point on it.
If I could also, for the joint session with the legislators, I would certainly invite Chief Drive to attend. And for that discussion between the council and the legislators, he could be there to chime in from the perspective of the police department, if that would be.
Which is typically what does happen, and a lot even comes out of those engagements. Someone has something to inform us on. So I think between the two events and your conversations with the chief, we'll have it beefed up where it needs to be. Everyone all set?
Yeah.
Terrific. Sorry. This duplex printing is tough. Okay, be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 121-142. And if I could ask someone to move that. Thank you. Second? Okay. Sorry to take that over. I apologize. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So we now move into new business. This starts out with the acceptance and appropriation of a $15,000 donation from Cheshire's Lights of Hope to the Human Services gift account. And we have with us Kathy Kirby to make the official announcement, presentation, and all of that. If you would like to come forward, Kathy, and go to the podium, it's a pleasure to have you.
Don Walsh said I didn't have to say anything.
Well,
So,
at the very least, you have to state your name and address for the record.
Kathy Kirby, 15 Brentwood Drive in Cheshire, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors of Cheshire's Lights of Hope. And we are very pleased that thanks to the participation of this community and our sponsors, that we are able to give the Town of Cheshire Human Services Department this check.
Yes, super.
Wonderful. Does anyone have any questions for
Oh,
Kathy?
God.
Oh, I mean, really, like how many donors, who are the big, you don't have to answer anything if it's not a question asked, but, just in case. Oh, Ms. Nichols.
I want to know, you're such a wonderful volunteer. How do we get 50 more of you or 100 more of you? I don't know that there's any charity or any group that doesn't take advantage of your eager attempts to volunteer at everything. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. And also, we have a lot of great volunteers, but especially in the night of the lighting event, we have people from every neighborhood practically helping out. We have young people, older people. In fact, one lady I was talking to, and she's like in her late 60s, not too much I'm almost there. So, and she just was so excited that there was something she could still participate in. So we're very blessed in this community, and we like to pay back the community for that.
Mr. Walsh.
I know a little bit about this organization, so I also know a lot about Kathy Kirby, and I want to add on to what Sylvia said regarding her. She has been, I chased her for many years to come to our organization, and I was thrilled the day she agreed to do it. And our organization unanimously chose her to be our Luminary Award winner, which we will be presenting to her at our committee party in January, February, because we felt that there was no better choice for somebody who has done so much volunteer work for this community. She sent us a list of her volunteer things that she's done in this community. I'm up to chapter 4. I think I have about 10 more chapters to go, but it's amazing the amount of work that she has given to this community, and it's a well-deserved honor for her. She just has to choose what charity she wants to give the $1,000 that goes along with the award to. So thank you for coming. I'm sorry I didn't explain that you needed to speak, but I know you're never at a loss for words.
Okay.
So thank you.
Well,
I'm
we
good to go
are
back
so,
to-
yeah, we're so happy you grace us with your presence, but we also have to do the perfunctory thing of accepting it. So with that, Mr. Bowery.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 121421-3. Be it resolved that the town council accepts and appropriates a $15,000 very generous donation from the Cheshire's Lights of Hope to the Human Services gift account.
Thank you, Mr. Bowery. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Milano. I think we've discussed this, but if anyone wants to add anything before we throw our hands up, one way or the other. All those in favor? Looks like this one is a unanimous vote. Thank you so much. We now move to B, which is the authorization to apply for the 2022 Justice Assistant Grant, otherwise known as JAG. Mr. Bowery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 121421-4. Be it resolved that the town council authorizes application for a 2022 Justice Assistance Grant for approximately $20,000 to be used for law enforcement efforts to prevent or reduce crime and violence.
Thank you, Mr. Bowery. Thank you, Mr. Talbot. So we have a second. We've had a motion. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just always nice when we can get federal funds to help our community. We generally aren't able to receive as much as the big cities and urban areas, but what we do get, we put to good use for safety and enhancement of our way of life here in Cheshire. And this is an excellent grant that can help with that.
And is it, just a quick question, if no one has one, is it specified in the amount of 20,000 as indicated? That would actually be what we would receive pending an approval of the application. The items are sort of spelled out, and there's a little arrow that goes to it. It says in the last column where there's an arrow says 20,000. Is that about?
20,000 is the formulaic amount that the town of
Right,
Cheshire.
so Cheshire can get up to that, or we'll get it if accepted?
Will get
We'll get it,
$20,000.
so it's 20 grand. That's great. That's good. I'm sure the chief has plenty of uses for that. Ms. Pavano.
I just wanted to know, was there any specific things that have been brought forward that this $20,000 is going to be put to?
So as the chief's memo indicates, he's still finalizing that list and will be giving it to me by the end of this month. So ultimately, this is just application to apply, and then we'll be back before you to appropriate the funds. And at that time, we'll have the uses that he's identified as most appropriate.
Okay. Did we vote on that, guys?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, so we move on to C, which is the authorization to apply for the 2022 Connecticut Communities Challenge Grant Program. Ms. Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the town council approves Resolution 121421-5. Be it resolved that the town council authorizes the application for the 2022 Connecticut Communities Challenge Grant Program, Round 1, 50% matching grant in the amount of $1,176,500 to be used toward the Bartlett South project, and further authorizes Town Manager Sean M. Kimball to execute the documents directly related to this application.
We have a motion. We have a second. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Discussion.
Okay, this is a grant that is being offered by the Department of Economic and Community Development, and it's a competitive process. Andrew Martelli, who is our new grant writing coordinator for economic development, has been instrumental in helping us find some of these grants and to apply for them. Andrew, do you want to add some information to this to broaden the scope of what that is? We have a large pool apparently, and we will be applying for this grant.
Sure. So the grant closes January 14th of this year. Grants are in the amount of either $1 to $10 million. There's $50 million statewide in this first round. There'll be a second round that'll open up, which will be an additional $50 million. The grants for communities similar to Cheshire require 50% match on behalf of the municipality. Some of our other neighbors are only up for 20% match, or 25% rather match. So the idea was the main scope of the grants is to basically go for some sort of community building, placemaking, and/or economic development initiatives for the given communities. The Bartlett Park South project does check a lot of the boxes within the grant, and the money's already kind of been allocated by the community. So we kind of pulled out some of the items that are in phase one, which is the Memorial Walk, the band shell, as well as the Great Lawn. So we have a lot of users and users in the community, and so we can kind of put all them together, get letters of support to really support this initiative for a real placemaking, town center, town green type of a community connection type project for submission to the state.
Thank you. And when would this when would we receive this grant?
So the grants are going to be reviewed. We won't know for about 6 months after the submission. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions back and forth, and then there'll be another grant round that'll go in exactly 1 year from the submission day of the 14th of January.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is the bathroom facilities part of this grant, or could it be part of this grant, or no?
Bathroom facilities are not in the grant, in this grant.
And it could not be
No, but
classified as a
I mean, if you think about
open
it,
space amenity or something?
if we do get the money for this grant, then that'll free up money that's in the bond. So we'll
Right.
be able to do some of the additional work that was looked at for the phase one of the project. So, but the bathroom facilities aren't specifically in the amount, and I mean, I'm sure we could talk about potentially adding those in. I'm not exactly sure what the final cost was for the bathroom facility.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my question was, could that be a part of what we asked for?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you see the summary in the attached form, there's not a lot of specifics. I will say that we tried to pick out those items that most directly and sort of clearly would be, I think, exciting, frankly, to the folks that we're going to be making these awards. They're looking for, it's a very competitive round. We know communities are going to be putting forward things, that are going to spark a lot of community interest and hopefully regional interest. So from our perspective, I think those items that we picked out were the most appropriate, and they meet that public space improvements, wayfinding, lighting, safety, because of the kind of way that we're going to have that walk area available and accessible to everybody, would stand our best chance at being successful. So that's why we identified those $2.3 million, and therefore the 50% match is what we're applying for.
Okay. I can appreciate bathrooms are not that exciting.
Well, I mean, for some they are, but certainly, I think as part of a whole package, we thought we carefully considered which things we would.
Writing several paragraphs about the excitement of a bathroom might be a little challenging.
Yeah.
I can do my best, but.
Just a quick question. If we do get, you said this is a two phase grant, that there's $150 million. If we're successful and we're lucky enough to get an award in the first phase, if we have other projects, can we apply in the second phase as well?
So I was on a webinar and somebody asked that exact question, and DECD was not able to provide an answer. So I don't think they've thought that far ahead. So I mean, I know there's several communities that are putting in more than one application. So I think they're going to see how much money gets dispersed for the first grant round, and then see where they're at for the second.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Walsh.
And just to clarify, so if we do get this grant, this is just going to lower the cost to the town. It's not going to increase anything else into phase one, correct? We're just going to stay with what we had on phase one. I know there were some suggestions about putting some addition things on, maybe a splash pad or something like that. I'm just assuming though that this is just going to lower our costs overall. Is that correct?
Well, that's correct from the perspective of the bond authorization, which of course, is inclusive of any grants that may be received. That being said, freeing up that capacity, again, there was 2 million that we're assuming either through lost revenue or through direct ARPA funding, we're going to already supplement into that 7.9 million that was approved by the voters. In the event that wasn't either deemed eligible, we wanted to use less ARPA funds there, you could offset with this, roughly $1.2 million that we're applying for. And then, of course, the other option is sort of separate from the actual project, whether you remove something else and then have something else that comes back in later as a separate appropriation by the council. So you'd have the option to do that too. So, I mean, it's a unique project in that, as you know, it's really a menu of a lot of different items that were within, frankly, even the overall master plan for Bartlett South. So there's no reason you couldn't pick off something we weren't able to include in phase two as a separate appropriation, just because you've freed up that financial capacity. So certainly it'll be up to the council to decide if we're lucky enough to receive this funding.
So just so I understand this, what was passed in referendum was the 7.9.
Correct.
If we're applying, if we get this 1 million, that will come off the 7.9. It's not going to make it 8 point, right?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that especially because of the matching component, we've already identified, and we're identifying as DECD, half of what was included in that appropriation for that purpose. So yes, that's correct. It's just, we would still have other options, I think, down the line, depending on how we want to take certainly this free money, if we were able to get it.
Stefano, did you have a question? Okay. And I guess the other, Mr. Bauer.
Well, no, I'm just going to amplify on that because this is a complicated project, and there's probably going to have to be a lot of ad alternates and things. And the talk of all of us at our budget workshops was that probably the next priority would be a splash pad or something like that. Exactly. So if some of these items came in a little bit under budget and we had additional money, but this isn't what's going to make it come in under budget. It's going to be just the fact that maybe we do 8 feet instead of 10-foot wide sidewalks or some other things in there that are part of the project. But so it's complicated, but just it's still possible to do the splash pad if the numbers come in good.
And to Mr. Bowery's point, this still has to go out to bid. So we don't even really know what the final numbers are. So, so this is just, heaven help us, we get this too. That would be great. Okay, so I guess it's time to take a vote on this. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? We have 8 for and 1 abstention. Mr. Mylon abstained. Mr. Mylon. Okay, we move on to D, which is a discussion and possible action regarding amendments to Public Safety Commission and Prison Advisory Committee ordinances. Mr. Veliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that pursuant, that the Town Council approves Resolution 121421-6. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Ordinance Review Committee, the Town Council approves amendments to the Public Safety Commission and Prison Advisory Committee as follows. And you are, in this proposed amendment, merging Public Safety and Prison Advisory Committee, and the text of which is in front of all of you.
Thank you. We have a second for that? Mr. Walsh. Discussion.
I would like to propose to the council, in light of what Mr. Lohman said, that he wanted to keep the safety committee together, which is a component of 5 people. I wondered if the council would consider adding 7 people to this committee rather than keeping it at 5. I would just like for us to discuss that.
I think that's fine. There is one thing I believe I did hear him say, and it was he wanted to keep his public safety as opposed to prison advisory. He wanted to keep that group together, which,
Right.
to answer that question, that's really contingent upon the town committees. The respective town committees are going to have to make appointments. And I believe it's going to be a 3-2 member appointment with staggered terms. David, you can probably explain that a little more fulsomely.
You mean as far as the? Sorry, you mean as far as the membership
The
goes?
membership.
Yeah, if the current commission had 5 members, yes, the current proposal would appoint 3 members to serve until January 31st, 2024, and then 2 members would serve until January 31st, 2025 to create the one stagger, at which time they would then all be appointed. The successors would fill it a 4-year term going forward from there. So at this point, the 5 members would be, if we appointed them, which we'd have to do if we adopted this, because adopting this will effectively terminate the Public Safety Committee and the Prison Advisory Committee to be reconstituted as this committee. So we would have to file those new 5 members to reconstitute that committee, or 7 members if we were to go to that number. But yes, so the first batch would, at this point, would be 3 and 2 with a 1-year stagger of 2024 and 2025, followed by reappointments of 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Villabur. Mr. Walsh.
Yeah, I would ask that the town committees try to get those nominations in by our next meeting, because the public safety meets on the second Wednesday of each month, which is the day after our next council meeting. So that way there's not a gap for them to have to skip their regular meeting date. So if we can get the town committees to put those nominations in and we can vote on them at our next meeting, I think it would be good, because as Mr. Lohman said, I mean, they're a very active committee. They're doing a lot. And the last thing I would want to do is to slow them down now. I'm sure Mr. Jenks could add to how busy they are. And since Mr. Lohman has taken over, I mean, there's been a lot of activity there. And I think they're doing a lot of good things for this community. And I don't want to see it slow down because we didn't get the nominations in on time or anything like that. And I'm not sure if is it 3-2 or is it 4-1?
It would, as a committee, by minority representation, it would be 4-1.
Right. Okay. That's what I thought. So I think if we can get those nominations in, I think it would be good.
Or 5-2 if we went to a 7. If we went to a 7-member, it would be a 5-2 commission.
Any comments to expanding it? Because I think one of the explanations for all of this, forgive me if I'm mistaken.
No, please.
But prison advisory has met almost never in 4 years. So to accommodate a vacant committee, and you've simply expanded the role of another committee to include what that other committee really never did, I don't think you've increased anybody's workload. I could be mistaken, but I don't see the advantage myself personally. That would be my opinion on it. I think we should all have our own opinions, because this would call for an amendment. And I think while I've spoken a few times before, I apologize. Anyone else who wants to weigh in? Mr. Jenks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, a couple things. First of all, just conceptually, I think it's, I don't love the idea that we're looking at collapsing commissions. We should be looking to, what we should be looking to do as a council is to make these commissions more effective. And to me, we do that in a few different ways. One being to open up the process of how we appoint people to these positions and how we find people to serve in these positions. There's a lot of people in this community that want to contribute their time, actually. It may not seem like it at times, but there's a lot of talented people in this community that want to contribute their time to these, to all different groups, and including these commissions and committees. So one is to kind of open up the process a little bit and how we find people to serve in these committees and commissions. Another would be to Sandy's point, I think, is the Public Safety Commission is only 5 members. For several years before I was involved, and before Frank became chairman, we had a very hard time getting quorums. Because if you just lose 2, or if you lose 3 of those 5 people, you can't have a meeting. So as we did in 2019, or as the council did in 2019, to kind of better serve these committees and commissions and help them to have more consistent meetings, we added alternates, which would be, I think, something I think we might suggest here as well. We are adding potentially some workload to the committee, as Chairman Slocum said, maybe not that much since they weren't doing much before, but we are adding perhaps some workload to this new committee, and it's an energetic group. They want to do a lot of work. They want to continue to into the future do more work. To me, it's something we should do as a council to give them some extra support, perhaps by appointing or allowing the parties to appoint alternates for that group. And also I just want to comment on the Public Safety Commission. They are, as I said, they're doing a lot of good work. And I think we want to continue to support that. They've been working well together. So I do hope that the parties will go ahead and just reappoint all these folks to come back and serve on this new commission. And I also just have a question too, is as far as, I mean, what is the prison advisory function? Do we really need that going forward? Does that need to be a part of this new Public Service Commission group? If the work hasn't been being done, what do we need to pass on necessarily to this group that we're forming now? And if we are, let's give them a little bit extra support by adding those alternates. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Do you want to go, Peter? No. I was the liaison to the Prison Advisory Committee for the past 2 years, and there hasn't been one meeting. I reached out to the chair and really never got a response. But I did look to see when their last meeting was, which happened to be in November of 2019. And it was a meeting that lasted about 15 minutes. And they basically said, yeah, there's nothing to really report. However, having said that, I do feel that having the prison in Cheshire, we do need to keep a line of communication open to them. As Sean could tell you, I mean, it's not easy to get hold of them. And I think it's really important to the people, especially the people who live in the neighborhoods around the prison, that we keep an open communication with them. And I'm hoping that with the public safety being so active, there's a way that we can get them to communicate or have a better line of communication with the prison, whether it's the warden or representatives, to discuss things that are going on at the prison and some of the concerns of the neighbors surrounding the prison or other people within the town. So I really think it's important that we keep this in there, but I think it could be all under the Public Safety Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Similarly, I have a lot of thoughts on not only this one, but the one that we're going to tackle in January, the consolidation and the elimination of some committees. Let's focus on this one, and then I'll venture on to other topics as we go. But with this one, there may be an easier solution, and after a conversation with some people much smarter than I am, there may be some statutory requirements for prison advisory. I think we should, investigate that and maybe roll that function into Public Safety Commission. So instead of consolidating the two and renaming and reappointing, if we eliminated prison advisory and simply added to the Public Safety Commission the duties that were there, we could keep the existing 5 members of the Public Safety Commission intact and accomplish what Chairman Lohman spoke of tonight, and still accomplish what you're talking about doing with a commission that that hasn't met in a long time. Which leads me to kind of the second one, and
Conversation. the other committee?
Well,
we had?
it's a
I'd
general.
rather not
It
go
isn't.
there.
It's because I think we need to look at this rather than just this one specifically. We need to look at holistically how we do this. I found it very interesting that during the conversation about, well, this is a 4-1 commission. This is a 5-2 commission. No, it's not. There's nothing in the charter, and I've gone through the charter. I've gone through the code of ordinances. There's nothing that says that the majority party has to appoint 4 members to that. So what I'm saying is that we take a new approach and a new look at how we appoint to boards and commissions. Let's take it out of the hands of the town committees. What the charter states in appointments, and I just pulled Water Pollution Control Authority to print out, and it says any vacancy in any appointed town board or commission from whatever cause arising shall be filled by appointment of the council within 60 days. So
Actually, our committees are all appointed by the council. They flow through, as you know.
right,
The town committees.
but the nominating process. So instead of narrowing it down to people that are registered Republicans or registered Democrats, let's open nominations to boards and commissions to the entire town.
I believe we do. There are many unaffiliated voters appointed. We all have trouble finding.
There's a handful, but I think you would find that the ones that are listed as unaffiliated probably lean a distinct direction. So let's say we do this. Resignations and appointments come through the town clerk. So someone resigns their appointment. That goes to the town clerk. The town clerk term is up and the person is not re-upping their term, then we put it out to the entire town rather than bringing it and looking and saying, oh, well, this was a seat held by D. Let's go to it has to. No, it doesn't have to. Let's get away from this 4-1, 5-2. Let's open it up as long as we don't, as long as we adhere to the state statute with requirements and don't put 5 people on a 5-member commission, all from the same party, but there's nothing that says it can't be 3-2, it can't be 2-3, it can't be 1-4. I think we're hurting ourselves with some of these boards and commissions not being able to have quorums by getting people that aren't interested in serving. We're appointing for the sake of appointing, and by doing it the way I've suggested, by putting it out there and accepting nominations from the public, you're getting people that are interested in serving on that particular board or commission, and presumably, and that would be part of the council's vetting process, people that have an expertise in that area. And that may give us the ability to have better attendance at meetings, quorums at meetings, more meetings, and more interactive meetings.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's a holistic voice and topic, I think, for a different day. But Mr. Bowery?
Well, I like the altruistic tones of Councilman Talbot's thoughts, but I honestly don't think it's in the realm of the council to, especially not the way we have been doing things, to have us also interview 110 people for different boards and commissions. As we are all well aware, our town committees have nominating committees that meet for many, many hours, probably almost equal to the amount of time that we put in as council members. So I, as one council member, I'm not interested in adding to our purview that we have to interview people for the 110 members of all the different boards and commissions that we might have. But more specific to this, I do like what Councilman Talbot said about maybe just adjusting the Public Safety Commission rather than having them go. But you know what? The reality is the 5 people are going to be reappointed anyway. So that's how it's going to happen. And we have the final say, and we're going to tell our town committees that that's what we want because they're all working very well. I would say that the Prison Advisory Committee, when we formed that in I don't remember, 1991, whenever we started that. It was not meant to be a permanent commission. It was not meant to be around 30 years later. It was meant to be advisory because we had a lot of prison breaks and we had a lot of escapes. And it was set up because of that. We wanted a local voice to be heard by the state legislators, and they could put the pressure on the prison and the state officials there. And that worked well. And the technology then was that, well, we had to have a phone tree and make phone calls out. The technology has considerably changed as well in making us all aware of if there is something that we need to know. So in some ways, the usefulness is not there, and it was never intended to be a 30-year commission. If there are some state items that they have, some state obligations that they have, it certainly could be rolled into the Public Safety Commission. And I think what I would say to Mr. Lohman is you are doing a super job, and this is proof of that because we're giving you one more task that hopefully isn't going to take a lot more time away. And that's success breeds success, and I think that's certainly where we head with this. So I'm going to support it the way it is because I think it covers things. But with respect, I do agree with Councilman Talbot that another way could have been just to expand the Public Safety Commission. I hadn't thought of it until he just said it. And I'd really like to get moving on this. I'm a small government guy, and I just don't think we need a whole bunch of boards and commissions on the books. And I don't either. We need to cajole them into getting things to do. They have a purpose. That's why we set them up. And Public Safety Committee is a perfect example of how they're doing their job and doing a great job at it.
Thank you, Mr. Burry. Ms. Nichols.
Yeah, I'm listening to this very carefully because having been involved in trying to find people to fill seats on boards and commissions for a long time, and having served on some of those commissions and realizing the difficulty of getting people, I do know that there is some concern about people having to commit to a particular political party in order to offer to serve, and therefore they're hesitant to put their names in. So I think there is some benefit in future to, as we approach some of these things and go forward, to perhaps find a creative way. I think Peter's ideas are certainly worth considering and thinking about. For this particular commission, I think that I absolutely support it the way it is. And I think, like David said, the Prison Advisory Committee was a temporary committee. The changes in the prison system and the way we operate and all of that make a difference. And I think it could be easily absorbed into the Public Safety Commission, and by reappointing the people that are there, we're continuing, and I think that's great. But I don't think we should eliminate the thought process about perhaps making boards and commissions have more specific duties and projects to do, and finding a way, whether it is, like Mr. Jinks said, having alternates so that you don't have the problem of not having a quorum, or whether it's developing a process to allow other townspeople that are not specifically involved with one or the other political party. I think that's a topic that we ought not to ignore, and we ought to think about going forward. But in this case, I will support this one the way it is, and I say we don't put that totally to bed. That's where I'm at.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the second bite at the apple, so to speak. What Ms. Nichols brought up raised a question, so I will ask of the town attorney, if I may. We had talked in ordinance review about adding attendance, but I think Mrs. Nichols' point is well taken. What about if we added alternates? Is that something that we could do as a blanket ordinance review across boards and commissions? Or what is your thoughts on the best way to tackle the alternate question? Because I think it does get to a lot of the points that were raised about quorums and attendance and everything else. You would be a lot more likely if there were alternates that you could plug and play and get a quorum.
I assume you're talking about committees or boards and commissions that don't already have alternates, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I would certainly encourage you to do it on a agency by agency basis rather than try to cover it through some type of a blanket ordinance. You know, I don't know what the Councilman Barry talked about the original purpose of the Prison Advisory Committee. There is, you mentioned statutory requirement. There's a statutory requirement for the Department of Corrections to, in every municipality in which they have a facility, to create either a public safety commission with municipal participation or a prison advisory committee with municipal participation. So I'm not sure where that stands in terms of who's been appointed to any Department of Corrections committee, but certainly in your general question about, you know, attendance requirements versus alternates. Yeah, I mean, if you want to increase the likelihood that you'll have a quorum, then having alternates available would be one way to do that. But I would tend to do it on a agency by agency basis instead of trying to tackle it through one ordinance. Just because I'm concerned about some challenge to the fact that we didn't amend an existing ordinance to reflect additional composition or additional membership of that agency.
Thank you. Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
James.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So going back to my point earlier about the Youth Services and Human Services merger back in 2019, when we added alternates there, I understand that so before we did that, before we did the merger and adding the alternates, they had a very hard time for many years, or at least several years, of having quorums and having effective meetings. And after that addition of the alternates and the merger, since then they've had a successful quorum and meeting almost every month, despite COVID, actually. So it's an example of where it's helped quite a bit. And I think it would be a good idea, a very good idea for us to look at doing that tonight for Public Safety Commission, and also going forward as Attorney General said, perhaps on an agency by agency basis. I also would like to say that the process right now is working. The process of finding and appointing these volunteers is working to some degree, but it could be better. I think we all would agree on that. My experience as a liaison to the Town Beautification Committee is they have 2 empty seats for the past 2 years plus. And I get asked about it pretty much every meeting, you know, when are we going to get new volunteers? These are, you know, I sit around the table and I couldn't tell you who a Republican, who a Democrat is for a beautification committee. Okay. These are people that are passionate about, you know, trees and plants and gardens and so on and so forth. It's a lovely meeting, by the way, if you ever want to attend. It's a group that is, that would like some new blood, that would really appreciate some new members, and they don't give a darn about what party they're coming from. So the process we have now is working to some extent, but obviously it isn't working as well as it could be. And I think that's what myself and Peter and a few others are trying to express, that we could be doing this better. I don't think we'd be in a situation, Mr. Burry, where we're interviewing all the people for these appointments. That's not what's going to happen. But I just hope that over the course of this discussion and perhaps next month as well, we can come up with some reform on this front. I think it's important to the community. I think we need to kind of unleash the value of these committees and commissions. There's a lot there. Public Safety Commission, I think, has shown, you know, from a commission that was doing almost nothing and not having effective meetings to now doing a lot. I think it shows that there's a lot of value in these committees and commissions that we're just not tapping into. And it wouldn't take much. It would just take a bit of let's say, bipartisanship to push it over the top here. So again, I hope that we can add alternates to this. You know, have an amendment for alternates to this proposal tonight, and go forward from there. Thank you.
I believe the council, at least through the chair, can make an appointment to a commission that's got a vacancy. So if somebody doesn't want to go through a town committee, I don't see why there's not a little tickler that could go out to the world that they could ask the council for an appointment. I think that could allow for many things. I do not think I'm mistaken on that. I believe the chairman can make an appointment. Right. Right. So I guess my point is, it could solve a lot of problems of these issues, because Jim, you've got a few people in mind, for example, for two vacancies, or possibly you did. You know, there's two vacancies. I have no idea what the town committees are going to do coming up to those appointments. We haven't seen them yet. But if in fact we've got vacant seats and there's someone who wants to fill them, they can tell the council. I think that's within reach and reason. Yes, Jim.
Just one more thing. In the beautification committee, as an example, I mean, I have, over the last 2 years, I've forwarded several names, and I've heard nothing back. So like I said, the process works up to an extent. The people that I've forwarded, I think were certainly qualified to be on the beautification committee. So I just, like I said, we just need to work together a little bit better in filling some of these seats, and for the, as I said, to sort of wring the value out of these committees and commissions. Thanks.
Mr. Felber?
Yeah, my quick comment on a couple of things. One, I think that for a commission or a board or commission, I think it's up to us and to our town committees and to the volunteers to really be committed to the board that they're on. They are appointed to fill that vacancy and role, and the role that they're serving on that. And if they can't meet those capacities, then we need to look at perhaps replacing them or look at someone else. And so I think for many boards and commissions, and I understand the idea of having, having alternates, but I also think that also, to some degree, perhaps sometimes lets some of the permanent members off the hook a little bit for some of these things. And I think that they need to be committed to the committee. So I'm not sure, especially in this committee, and I know you mentioned Youth and Human Services, which I think we did a great job when we combined those two committees together, because the combination of them did inspire and infuse a certain energy into that committee. And they do now have quorums, but it's not necessarily because they have alternates that they have quorums. It's because the members that are appointed actually come to the meetings, and the ones that the actual, the permanent members are doing what they're supposed to be doing as well. So I think that that's also an issue too. So when it comes to something like this, I think it's important that we have permanent members rather than alternates, and that those permanent members are sort of committed to the committee that they're on. And I think to some degree, having alternates on, especially on a small board like this, may create more confusion than just having permanent members. So for something like this, I think it's important that we have dedicated permanent members. And so I would think for us, I'd rather stay with a 5-member permanent board than have alternates. And as I said, the combination of these committees will hopefully infuse this committee with more energy and allow them to do what they're tasked to do.
I just have one more. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Ivana. Sure.
I do think this gives us the opportunity to recreate the Prison Advisory Commission. I think it is vital for us to have communication with the Correction Department and to find out issues and so forth that are in the Correction Department, since we have this facility here in Cheshire. We have no communication. So I think this allows us to open the lines of communication. So I do think that this can be created to make a good thing out of something that has been nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to alternates, because I know the Planning and Zoning was really the only commission that came to my mind. I had forgotten that there were alternates with the other body you just talked about that was merged. And certainly with Planning and Zoning, there's a requirement. Alternates have to sit in those seats for every meeting. They have to be prepared to vote should they be called. Could be brought about by a recusal or whatever. And we had a very important decision recently made where 2 alternates made votes. That's a statutory requirement. These people have to sit in every seat. I just think it's kind of silly to have a lot of alternates, because in my estimation, they should have a requirement to sit at every meeting. Otherwise, they got to tell us they read the minutes and watched it on TV. Maybe that's okay, but to me, if there's an alternate making a vote, maybe there's not a lot of votes, but they have the same job as a sitting member. That's just my take on it. Not that we've set out the rules that way, but I'll be supporting this as is.
I'd just like to add one more question, one more comment to all this. I don't want to make it too long. I clearly think I will support this as it stands now, but I clearly think we have opened up a discussion that should go further. And what appears to be clear to me is that we are not perhaps structuring the boards and commissions with clear guidelines or giving the people serving on them direction or clear expectations of what they're supposed to do as a member of that commission, and the importance of showing up and being present and being involved and committed. Often they get put on because you say, well, it's only one meeting a month, don't worry about it, right? And that's to get people to agree to come and do it. But I think there's so many more things that we need to talk about. We need to move on with this one, and I will support this the way it is, but I do think it's a subject we need to keep discussing because it'll come up again and again. So,
It'll obviously come up next month, and that'll be put to bed so we can go on to other things, I think. So with that, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-2. Okay, we now move along to E, which is the discussion and possible action of Town Council Rules of Procedure. Colleagues, these were handed out to us at our organizational meeting on the 6th. Essentially, I recall making a comment regarding the relocation of executive session to towards the end of regular business. And there may be others. You had an opportunity to review them. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly am in total agreement with your desire to move executive session to the end of the agenda. And I know you had asked us to take a look at these, and I certainly did. But while we were going through the agenda tonight, something struck me, and I just wanted to throw it out there. And I apologize again for it being last minute. But we have, as part of public communications, we have public comment. We certainly, with our old business, new business, we haven't had a great deal of public comment. There's probably going to be none tonight on any of the issues. But I wondered if it would be worth clarifying our public comment. I know it's usually been the one that appears in public communication is for people speaking to items that aren't on the agenda. And I know it adds another step, but if you put a sign-up sheet that said, I want to speak to the council tonight. Well, is it for an agenda item or not for an agenda item? And that would tell us, and we would know ahead of time, that public communication, we had someone that was going to speak on whatever issue that wasn't on the agenda. And you had an individual who wanted to speak on item, 9H tonight or whatever. And that way it was open for them so that we don't pass an opportunity for the public to speak. Just a thought that I had as
think
as
it's
this
a
came
decent
up.
thought, to be honest with you, I think in the past, it's probably been addressed when a question was directed towards an agenda item in the public, and the chair would state, well, you can hang around for the agenda item, but present it then. And maybe the chairman can do a more efficient job at the beginning of the meeting and state that public comments are for any comment for an item that's not on the agenda. I mean, that could be my job, so to speak, my task. And it could be typed on the agenda in fine print so I don't forget. And we could make that. And I don't think there's a problem with a sign up, but I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? They have to speak to the public record. Yes, Arnett.
The council cannot require anyone to sign up as
To speak.
as a condition of speaking.
Okay.
That takes care of that.
We ultimately, I guess,
Yeah.
No, but people, you cannot require it. It's a-
but we do require their name and address. So
Right.
I guess that's their sign up. So probably the best solution is my
Is to,
reminder
yeah.
that public comments are for anything not on the agenda.
Well, I was just going to say, many towns, if not most towns that I work in, do have sign-in sheets. But as Arnett indicated, you can't tell someone you can't speak because you didn't sign the sign-in sheet. But most people sign it.
I'm happy with the way that it's been
Yeah,
going
I was
now.
gonna say,
Yeah.
I think we continue the way
Yeah.
we have.
Yeah, with,
Just
Okay.
Just,
Yeah.
I think it.
Right.
Yeah.
It becomes incumbent upon all of us
Yeah.
to be aware of the audience and who's here and who may be interested in speaking on a particular issue.
I guess maybe to Peter's good point, I would suggest that the wording that states public comments as D or whatever order it falls in, indicate in the wording, because it is a publicly posted agenda, that it state that public comments are for anything that is not on the agenda. There's no reason that couldn't be done. And then we avoid a sign up and we get the word out and I don't have to mess up by making a point. You could,
Tim, isn't that on there now? The way I read it, it says it's general items not on the agenda.
where did you see this? I'm sorry, it's right on our agenda.
Unless I'm reading it wrong, might be. On page 2.
Page 2.
Well, I'm looking under public communication. Where are you looking, John?
Yep, the rules, page 2.
Section-
Not the agenda,
section
page
6
2, the
order of
rules,
business.
page 2.
Oh, fine, it's a rule. Okay, but it's a rule we have to remember. So, so I guess what I'm stating, because this becomes the publicly posted record,
Right.
that if it's stated on the publicly posted record, then we kind of cover the bases. Is that reasonable?
I think what Mr. Mylone said is, it says right in the rules, not the agenda, we're looking at the
Right.
rules.
Right.
Correctly, general items not on the agenda, so we just need to put that on the agenda.
Oh, yeah.
I think that,
I know that's the
Okay.
absolute intent. I have no quarrel with
Right.
that. I just
I
think
think it's
clearly
taken care of.
stated makes it, clearly stated just takes away the fatigue of forgetting and being reminded by Marilyn.
And is it clearly my ability then to speak to an agenda item further on if I'm a public?
That's always the case.
Right, but do
Right.
they know that? If you say at the beginning, public comments are for only things that are not on the agenda. Okay, and I've come and I've read that. I say, okay, but I want to speak to something that's on the agenda. Is there anything that makes me, the public who doesn't know how this works, say, well, if I'm not speaking, I can't speak to anything on the agenda. I just want to make sure that they're comfortable knowing that if they have a question about a topic that's being discussed, that opportunity is available at the time we discuss the buses or whatever it is that we're talking about, right? I don't know that you have to change it.
Right. Well, I know it's come up a handful of times and we've asked them to wait and they usually hasn't been too much of an issue. Does anyone, do we have to add a third line to public communications? Do you think we could cover that just by being smart about who's in the room? You good with that?
Yeah, but I think we need to make sure, like.
Right.
If somebody said, pay attention to who's out there, because if you see somebody
Right.
after the whole thing,
Right.
make sure they know that they can speak.
Okay, so I think as discussed, there's two tweaks. Staff understands how they'll be positioned, repositioned, stated, and they'll show up at our January 11th agenda. Terrific. Okay, I guess we do have to vote on that. Is that the case? Is there a resolution on that?
There is
No, I get that. I'm just looking for it. I apologize. Oh, yeah, it would be resolution. I'll make the resolution and let someone second it, if that's okay. It's right in front of me now. Be it resolved, the town council approves resolution 121421-7. Be it resolved, the town council adopts the Town Council rules of procedure with the following amendments. 1, move executive session to agenda item 14. Number 2, more clearly state public comments as discussed. You could elucidate a little in the writing on the posting of the agenda. So that's the motion before us. We have a second from Ms. Nichols. Further discussion? All those in favor? Perfect. Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, I got to get back to my regular sheet here. Okay, we're on to F, which is the authorization to apply, acceptance, and appropriation of the Urban Act Grant Award funds. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 121421-8. Be it resolved that the town council authorizes the town of Cheshire on behalf of Ball and Socket Arts to submit an Urban Act grant for financial assistance in the amount of $1,500,000 to the State of Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development, DECD, for the Ball and Socket Arts Adaptive and Reuse Project. Be it further resolved that the town council accepts and appropriates this $1,500,000 grant for the purpose indicated.
Okay, we have a motion. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. We have a second, Mr. Talbot. Discussion.
Yes, so back in June, Ball and Socket was able to acquire this grant. And basically, the money is going to be sent through the town of Cheshire to act as the fiduciary agent for the Ball and Socket. But maybe either Sean or Andrew could probably speak better on this about how the money will be spent and who's going to be in charge of it all.
Sure, thank you. So back in June, as Mr. Walsh stated earlier, the State Bond Commission approved this $1.5 million for the Ball and Socket Arts Project. At the time it went through the Bond Commission approval, the town was listed as the applicant. I wasn't here, but the town didn't actually submit an application for the funding. So now DECD is asking that retroactively we submit the application for the funding, which has already been approved by the State Bond Commission. So for all intents and purposes, their file is complete. To the actual project, the funding is going to be for phase 1, which is the barn building on the corner of Willow Street and West Main Street, which is phase 1, which is commonly known as the new Sweet Claude's location for their both ice cream and their ice cream manufacturing type operation in their commercial kitchen. Ball and Socket is going to hold all contracts with the contractors. They are going to hire a construction manager, which they've already been going through the procurement process with, approved by and reviewed by DECD. Once that's held, there'll be no contracts with the town of Cheshire. Everything will be a direct fiduciary responsibility of the town, whereas Ball and Socket's going to submit the applications for payment to their architect and engineer, who's going to then authorize those applications for payment with a cover letter to the town, which will then come to myself, where we'll internally review it. I'll review the items in the field just to double check to make sure things are done, not from an engineering standpoint. And then we'll submit those payments to DECD for payment. The money will come to the town, and the town will cut the check directly to the contractor. So it's strict fiduciary type of a relationship. We're going to have an agreement in place between the town that I've been working on with Attorney D'Onofrio to ensure that we're protected through and through. Previous brownfield grants that the town has administered, there was more of a relationship where there were actual contracts that were between the town and the actual environmental remediation contractors that were doing the work back through the phase 1 environmental remediation. That's not the way that this is going to flow this time. So there's a lot of eyes on it, but I think that this protects the town and they can do what they need to do in the field, and we're not, fitting out the buildings for a Sweet Claus type of an operation.
Mr. Mylone.
I just have a question. Who on behalf of the town will be responsible for making sure that the town funds the funds that are coming through the town are being allocated properly and other than from behalf of, for Woonsocket, but on behalf of the town, Sean, will that come through your office or who will be assigned to that?
Yes, it'll be coming first through Andrew, and then I'll be able to review at the same time now that through my office.
Anyone else? Andrew, you mentioned that there was a distinction when we had the brownfields cleanup. Our liability was still zero, correct, during that time frame? Because I certainly knew with those grants, they were explained as pass-throughs basically, but the town seemingly had a little bit more work to do.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't here at that point, Chairman, but you know, Attorney D'Onofrio could certainly speak to it. I've seen that there are items in the file, whereas there were contracts that were done between Ball and Socket Arts, kind of relieving us of any sort of environmental responsibility for the property. But I'm not exactly certain what the language was in there.
Because I think we were held harmless. I mean, there was just no question about all of that. I guess I was just concerned. Well, actually, it pleases me that what you're indicating here is we really have nothing more than a signature and a pass-through here,
Right.
and no work to do, really, except make sure the check is mailed to the right people. They're responsible for the work, and the
And
owners,
the contracting and the oversight. I mean, the
right,
last
and the owners are responsible to take them to task if they have a problem. We have no
Exactly.
role to play in that.
and
That's
they
all
need
very
to
clear.
certify to us that all the work was completed in the field, whereas we're not using our engineering staff in order to go out and review in the field the
Right.
applications for payment. They need to come to us signed and executed and sealed by the engineer.
And the only role the town plays is the role of the building inspector if they're tasked to check all that stuff. I mean, there's that statutory requirement, and we could be assured stuff is supposedly being done correctly. So, and that's just a totally different thing. Yes, John?
I'm still a little concerned. I mean, we're acting like a bank here, and when a bank provides money to a construction project, they review even the applications for payment by a third-party professional. And I believe Sean has the ability to do that. He has staff, public works staff, and town engineering staff to review that. But I don't think we have no responsibility here. I think that if the funds are misused and we don't catch that, we could be responsible. So I think it's important that Sean uses our staff and reviews these carefully, because whatever goes through, we can't just take the word of the applicant's professionals.
So the state is not the bank? Is that a fact?
I mean, be happy to.
I'm not concerned about it. I just think we have to take it seriously, that we have a responsibility as a fiduciary of these funds to make sure that they're used properly.
And I didn't mean to minimize that. I just meant the whole flare of, real heavy duty work on our part, and then culpability if something really happens in the management of those funds after the check is signed, to me belongs on the owner's hand. I believe they're the recipient of the funds.
Really what needs to happen is when the monthly application for payment comes in, there's a schedule of values that has percentages of completion. And somebody needs to vet those percentages of completion to make sure that we're not overpaying. That's really the extent of the town's role. We'll have a certification. We talked about me drafting a certification in addition to the AIA pay app certification, a certification from Ball and Socket. But as Councilman Malone's saying, we can't rely on that. I mean, we don't have an obligation to confirm that it's 63%, but we have an obligation to make sure that it's pretty darn close to that before we make payments.
Just as I'm listening to Mr. Malone about that, I was just wondering if part of your economic development report to us each month, you could just add in if whatever is being used of this money, how it's being used, and what, just to keep us up to date, so we have an understanding of how far along this project is going with that $1.5 million, and if it's gonna, I don't know if, I'm assuming they're applying for other grants and things like that. That in the future we probably will be the fiduciary agent for those too. I'm assuming if it's their state grants, So this could be something that is an ongoing project that, is going to take up staff time and things like that. And I think it's important that we are kept up to par with what's going on with the money that we're left in charge of. So.
For sure, I could definitely keep the council up to date as we move forward.
Staff time is perhaps the town's contribution to the West Main Street development. Yeah, when you get right down to it, I guess we can't whine. We have to follow our fiduciary requirements. And as Mr. Walsh suggests, have evidence that it's being done on schedule. It seems to make sense. Thank you, Mr. Malone, for bringing that to our attention, for clarity. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, we move again to G, which is the acceptance and appropriation of Connecticut Department of Transportation Capital Assistance Grant Award funds for the senior minibus. Ms. Pavano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 121421-9. Be it resolved that the town council accepts and appropriates the Connecticut Department of Transportation Capital Assistant Grant for approximately $80,000 for the purchase of a minibus, and further authorizes town manager Sean M. Kimball to execute the agreement for said grant. Be it further resolved that the town council confirms that funds are available to provide a local match if necessary, if needed.
Thank you, Ms. Pavano. Mr. Eliver, second. Thank you. Discussion.
Yes, this grant will allow the Senior Transportation Service Division to purchase a new wheelchair accessible vehicle to replace one of the older vehicles. And it says that it actually pays for 100% for the new wheelchair. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Mr. Jenks.
Thank you, Mr. Just a quick question. So we have two of these vehicles now, or is it just one? I mean, before the purchase of the new one?
What's our, you have 3 right now?
3?
Yep. And they retire one eventually.
Michelle tries to rotate it, and that has actually been very successful in every year or two getting a grant to replace the oldest vehicle.
Okay. And this would be a replacement, so the older vehicle is going to be, well, we'll put that up for auction. Is that what we'll do?
We may, there has been, we own it, so there's no returning of it or anything. This is just, it's ours to do with what we want. There was some discussion in the past. I think the police department was looking for a possible use for one of the vans at one point, but I don't think, so I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen to the oldest one. Just that the 3 newest ones will be in service as the minibus for the town.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or further discussion? I'll call for a vote then. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, H, the approval amendment for resolution fiscal year 2021-2022 capital budget item number 10, appropriating $190,000 for the acquisition of an emergency portable backup generator. Mr. Barry.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 121421-10. Be it resolved that the paragraph A of resolution FY 21-22 capital CEB number 10 be amended to read as follows. That the town of Cheshire appropriate $190,000 for costs related to the acquisition of 1 or more emergency backup generators. The appropriation may be spent for design, construction, equipment, materials, engineering, consultant, and legal fees, related improvements, repairs, or renovations, net interest on borrowings, or other financing costs, and other expenses related to the project, that the town council shall determine the scope and particulars of the project and may reduce or modify the project scope, and the entire appropriation may be expended on the project as so reduced or modified.
Thank you, Mr. Barry, for that very fulsome motion. Mr. Veliver, thank you for your second. Discussion.
Yeah, sorry, it took longer to read than it looked like it would. But basically what we're doing is we were expecting to buy, when we did the capital budget earlier this calendar year, we're expecting to buy one generator, but the prices come in tremendous. So we are able to get one full generator as we wanted and another one that will do smaller type buildings. This is great news, but it also all ties in with the fact that when the capital budget comes up next calendar year, we'll be reviewing the one that the Board of Ed has in the second year of the capital plan to see whether that should be a permanent one at a particular place for them, or that we also use as a general town government, or how this all fits in together. So this will come up again, but I'd like to take advantage of this. And just one little correction, it's a 38-week and not 38-month wait for it. So it'll be coming sometime September or so. I think I figured it out quickly.
Any other questions or comments? I know there was also mention of saving if we place the order now. There's a 6% increase, but January 1?
That's correct. As I understand it from the vendor, from the consortium that Jack was procuring the larger generator from, that there is a 6% cost increase expected January 1st. So Chief Kastner is recommending if we're going to move forward that we do so in the next couple of weeks.
Right. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote on this. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, as we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we're going to enter into executive session for the purposes of discussing some contracts. The executive, I will ask for motion after I cite who's going to be included, to include the town manager, the town attorney. Arnett, will you be saying? Arnett Talbot, Noel, and Jim Jascott. Anybody else as a member of this group? Andrew? No, right? They'll tell you all about it tomorrow.
Good night.
Thank you very much. So that is sort of the motion in a way. So
So
someone
moved.
would move that.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Talbot, for the second. All those in favor? Okay, we're going to let Marilyn wrap this up in the pace she needs.
Drink of water. Then.
We're going to have to work awful hard to do that and take a vote for 11. Okay, and Mike is good? Thank you, sir. Okay, we're now on to the discussion and possible approval of a MSW disposal contract with Murphy Road Recycling. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 121421-11. Be it resolved that the town council authorizes the town of Cheshire to accept the municipal solid waste disposal proposal of Murphy Road Recycling LLC, MRR, and FNG LLC as submitted in response to the Town of Hamden's municipal solid waste RFP number 21-16. And be it further resolved that the town council authorizes town manager Sean M. Kimball to execute a 5-year agreement for said services pursuant to the terms and conditions as presented.
Thank you for the motion. Thank you, Mr. Villeber, for the second.
Okay, so basically, we have been operating without a contract for several months now, and we've been utilizing F&G or Murphy Road, whatever you want to call them. They have several different names to handle it. The town of Hamden has set up, has already entered into a contract agreement with them, and we've been offered the same contract. And it looks like it's something that we really are going to have to go with because it's the way trash is going these days. It's getting more costly to dispose of the garbage around. So I'll just read the numbers. I believe it's year one is $95 per ton. Year two is $98.80 per ton. Year three is $102.75. Year four is $106.90, and year five is $111.20.
Any other comments? I guess the only thing I would estimate, just suggest for anyone at home doing the math, we do about 8,000 tons. So it's a significant thing we're doing here, no question about it, but we all feel we need to do this in the best interest of the community. Get a seat at the dump. It's important. It's competitive. Okay, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're done with regular new business, and we're on to town manager report and communications.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be very brief. I did cover most of my report was the COVID-19 update. I will just hit a couple of highlights. You'll see in the economic development update, Mr. Martelli put together a chart showing year-over-year increases in employment for, I think it's 12 or 13 of our largest employers. You'll see that in the last year, the town of Cheshire gained almost 800 new jobs from these employers. I thought that was a really interesting point of note and good news for our local employment base. You'll see there, and again, you can read at your own perusal, the Nights of Lights and Sights event from the Recreation Department and the locations available on the map. Welcome to our new building official, Tom Lozier. He began on November 29th. He's doing a great job so far, and we have a lot of great things in store for the building department. The Bartlett South Design and Engineering RFP, that RFP is been finalized. The proposal due date is January 12th. I know it's running in the paper on Thursday and again in other papers on Sunday. And if it's not already, it'll be up on our website, I think tomorrow. So we're targeting interviews and selection by the end of January to keep that project moving forward. Great news from the Friends of the Cheshire Library with a $16,466 net revenue from the book sale. They had a very, very successful and popular book sale, so congrats to them. And just please be aware of our holiday hours for the town offices. Town offices will be closed Thursday, December 23rd and 24th, and also Friday, December 31st in recognition of the associated holidays. That's it.
Terrific. Any questions for our able town manager? if he's able to take them. Okay, seeing none, I guess that's a good enough report, Sean. You have your other monthly status reports. You've either reviewed them or can, I suppose. Any questions on any of those comments? Okay, I'll turn that stack over. And we will next move to our chairman's reports. In case you don't remember who you are on your committees, I will start with Mr. Malone, who's audit chairman.
No report this month.
You'll have a few of those. Okay, I'll go to Mr. Bowery, budget.
No report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Personnel, Ms. Nichols.
Only thing is, we have some referrals coming up. We'll be meeting early January.
Terrific, terrific. Solid waste, Don, I know you've.
We've already talked about
Big
garbage.
report.
So no
Okay,
report.
we're covered. Ordinance review, we know you should be named a lot of work to do.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate it. Just wanted to let everyone know, obviously, the Ordinance Review Committee met back on December 1st, made some revisions to the proposed blight ordinance, and those proposals were the proposed draft was I emailed out to everyone earlier this afternoon. So please take a look at that, make any comments, thoughts, review, and we'll go from there. But it is something that we're looking to bring back to the full council. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you, Mr. Veliber. Planning, Ms. Bavano.
No report.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'm going to move along to some referrals. The referral of the deputy building official position to the Personnel Committee, referral of revisions to the personnel rules and regulations to personnel, and referral of discussion regarding the use of cannabis on town property to the Ordinance Review Committee. And there's one that's not on your agenda, but again, it's a post. It's a referral to the Budget Committee for review of the medical trust fund policy. I'm referring to budget so that they can take a look at this nasty object facing us every month and try and formulate something as our budget process begins to unfold really in earnest in the next couple of months. Actually, Board of Ed will be presenting theirs the end of January. So we got to start talking about that too. I don't have anything else under miscellaneous. I guess miscellaneous can remain empty. I've got nothing to share unless somebody else does. So I'm going to move on to liaison reports. Again, we've just started this ball rolling. If you want to just go this way and just say you've got a report or not, I'll be happy to do that, starting with John.
Report this month.
Okay, Ms. Bavano,
No report.
Mr. Veliber.
Just a quick note, last night, the Planning and Zoning Commission adopted they took a vote to, I think, ban or opt out of the current accessory building or statute. And so we may see that coming, we will see that coming to the council to discuss. So just wanted to give a heads up of that.
Ms. Nichols.
Library, we talked about $16,000 book sale. Arts Place had a very successful art sale. Those of you who haven't ever been to that building should go and see how well organized it is.
Ms. Walsh.
No report.
Bowery.
No report,
Talbot.
sir. No report.
Mr. Jenks.
I do have one more thing to say about Public Safety Commission. We've spent quite a bit of time tonight talking about it, but last week at their meeting, they approved a proposal to become kind of a review board for sidewalks. This is something that we had started talking about last year at some point, and it kind of fell off the agenda, but came back. And the idea is for the Public Safety Commission to be kind of the point team as far as people, the town gets requests for sidewalks. We're working through sort of a scoring system of several criteria that the request would have to fall under. So they approved that. It wouldn't, assuming this happens, they become the review board. Obviously, their decision on whether or not to approve a request is not going to encumber the town to build one, obviously. But it's just it's sort of a way for the town to respond to. It's an interface for the community and the town to respond to requests for sidewalk, which I tend to get them every few months, people asking about sidewalks. And we don't really have a process right now for what to do with those necessarily. So this is a part of our beginning of a process to try and have the Public Safety Commission be the review board. So something else, as we mentioned earlier, it's an energetic group. They're eager to do some work, and this is an area that they want to get involved in.
I think that's actually good news. I know Energy has provided that sort of service to the council for years. As an active committee looking at ways to implement cost-saving measures. They're one that comes to mind because there are just so many times we've been able to enhance potential savings from their recommendations. That's a good positive one. So we would actually look forward to their recommendations about budget time. Mr. Malone.
Just, Mr. Jinks, one question. A lot of times applications for development include sidewalk waiver requests. Would the Public Safety Committee get involved in that as well, or it's just new sidewalk requests?
Yeah, they would not be involved in
wouldn't be
the request from a developer. No, it would be for a resident in an existing neighborhood or a group of residents asking for a sidewalk to be added to their street,
I
right?
was just curious. I don't know how cumbersome that would be trying to get involved in development applications as well. I just didn't know. Okay.
Right. No, they're not looking to take the place of the planning and zoning or anything
Well,
like that.
police usually weighs in on that, I think, if there's directly, if there's
Okay.
a request for a waiver and gives advice or guidance to, just curious.
Yeah, they're a committee of the council, so they would really have no role to play.
Yeah, that's what I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else? I guess that finishes this up. Do we have any appointments to boards and commissions tonight?
I have two, I would. One is for, no, let's see. This one is Lauren Backman, to be a new appointment to the Historic District Commission. She's a Republican. The term of office would be from the present to January 31st, 2023. And the second one is to appoint Nicole Davison as a new appointment to Youth and Human Services Commission from the present date of 1/30/2023. She's a Republican. She's filling the vacancy of Elizabeth Reduca. Is that how you pronounce her last name? Okay, so both of those are my two appointments.
I will second, Mr. Chair.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And you just need to sign these with your name before you go. Okay. Except it says.
This takes us to the town attorney's report, which I think he's probably reported adequately. That is terrific, Mr. Town Attorney. And then we have council communications, letters received to the council. Any to report? Mr. Jinks.
I did receive one today from a constituent of mine, Joy Vanderlick, who I'm sure several of you are familiar with. Let me just read this. I read in the Cheshire Herald that the newly elected town council is proposing various changes to a few commissions. One of those changes is to consolidate the Energy and Environment Commission. I do not believe that to be the best choice for our town. I would not recommend it. The Energy Commission has been successful and diligent in addressing the many current and potential items that come under their oversight and expertise. On the other hand, the Environment Commission, a group that has not met more than a handful of times in the past few years, has an equally long list of items to address. To merge the groups would certainly dilute the effectiveness of the Energy Commission and slow processes and progress in the other. The same Herald article mentioned that the town council had difficulty filling these volunteer positions on some of these commissions. Please know I am raising my hand to fill a seat on the Environment Commission. I'm also quite sure I know of a few others as well who are qualified and would be a good fit for the commission. I'm passionate about the environment and conservation, have a track record of working with governmental, educational, and nonprofit organizations in the area of environment. I am currently on the boards of the Mill River Watershed Association, the Coalition for Sustainable Cheshire, and serve on an advisory committee for the Cleves Agriculture, Science, and Technology Program at Lyman Hall High School. I am past president of the Cheshire Land Trust. In that capacity, I wrote NRCS USDA grants for woodland management surveys, brought in CT Farmland Trust and Working Lands Alliance experts to counsel our board on farmland soil management, directed stewardship on our properties, and initiated the land trust work with Yukon's Natural Resources Conservation Academy to mentor high school students in environmental projects. I continue to volunteer and work with Yukon on the Conservation Partners and Training Program today. I was with the Land Trust for approximately 7 years, in which we were very active in community conservation and education projects. Again, it would be an honor to serve my community in this capacity, and feel that as a standalone group, the Environment Commission could move on the important work ahead. Respectfully, Joy Vanderlick, 160 Brookline.
Mr. James, could I get a copy of that letter, or just give me the spelling of the general name?
Sure, it's Vanderlek. Joy Vanderlick.
Joy, J-O-Y?
Yep.
Okay.
I can also just give you this letter as well.
No, it's okay. What was I gonna make? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Jinks. I was going to make the public aware of the same letter that was addressed to me as well, perhaps all colleagues. I also had an email, I believe it was an email. I thought I was in fact printing this from Ms. Nitchner. Excuse me for mispronouncing it. She wrote a lovely letter, and I just printed the wrong one. I apologize for that, so I can't read it into the record. But I think I would naturally want to refer it to the ordinance committee. But I did follow up also with a conversation with her, a wonderful conversation. She's a lovely lady. And you know, basically gave her my impression of what the intent was, just so she would know. But I guess my suggestion is that these, I also told her that the public hearing would likely be potentially announced at the next meeting, but maybe not. I don't know for certain where this is going to be. And that they should be noticed, or could be noticed, or pay attention to the agenda, whatever it might be. So that's the extent of the communications I've received. So with that, there's nothing else unless somebody wants to come up with something for miscellaneous. We give it 2 shots.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
I just want to publicly thank the Park and Rec and John Golick, and I think it was the Cheshire Junior Women's who put on the tree lighting ceremony a couple weeks ago. It was very well attended. I was happy to see all the people out there, and you know, it's a great thing that we're now moving to Bartlett with the tree lighting, and you know, hopefully in a couple of years we'll have our new green and we'll be able to put it over there. But I could tell they did a lot of hard work to get that. And from the faces of some of the kids who were there and some of the adults, they really enjoyed it. So I want to publicly thank them for doing that.
Don, that was good. I was there. It was a nice affair. It really was. It was cold that night too, but the lights really worked and they look really great. And that's it. So I guess I will ask for a motion to adjourn. So moved. We got a second? All those in favor? Never a fight on this one.